At least he died in a place he loved, or some such nonsense.
Good morning, good evening, or good night, folks. I'm your host, Simon Redhand, and welcome back to Gaming Red-Handed. And welcome back to another episode of the Prepared Exile. In today's video, we're going to explore how to progress through Act 1 smoothly. I'll walk you through the fastest routes in each zone, the key objectives you'll need to complete, and the rewards you'll earn along the way. We'll also talk about whether it's worth saving some of those tasks for later. As we encounter bosses, I'll walk you through their key mechanics so you know what to expect, and by the end of this video, you'll have everything you need to move smoothly to Act 2. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and with that, let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. Just a quick aside, I'll be doing this on cruel difficulty. For the sake of the information being shared, this shouldn't pose an issue. The only difference will be in the bosses, as they are harder on cruel. Now, the first boss we encounter is the Miller.
The Miller, I presume.
He's fairly simple, being a tutorial boss. His main function is to teach you how to dodge. When he shouts split you and slams down, just get ready to move. I find the Miller is the easiest to beat when you stay close to him. Wait for him to act, then get behind him. Rinse and repeat until it's over.
Out of mana. Impressive size, but little acuity.
Once you're in town, the first person you need to speak to is Renly. He gives you a reward for defeating the Miller. While you're in town, make it a habit to check the vendors, especially those selling armors and weapons, and the ones that allows you to disenchant gear. In Act 1, these vendors are Renly and Una. From Renly, you're looking for movement speed boots. 10 to 15% is the best you're going to get at this level. And from Una, keep an eye out for jewelry, sapphire, ruby, and topaz rings, jade, bloodstone, and lapis amulets. These pieces will help you manage your resistance and attribute shortfalls while leveling. Prioritize sapphire in Act 1, as the cold resistance will make your life much easier. Personally, I pick up and save all jewelry and frequently craft on them. Every piece of jewelry I have right now is solo self-found. I save everything that crafts well, but I can't currently use for alt characters. This is a habit I think everyone should get into. I'll have a video coming up on solo self-found progression crafting. We'll focus on what stats to look out for, identifying good rolls, and mod synergies worth keeping. We'll also cover how to tell when an item is bricked and it's time to move on and save that currency. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in that, and I'll prioritize making that video sooner. There's one more NPC that allows you to gamble for items. Its attempts are refreshed when you kill rare or unique enemies, but at this time, I'd advise you not waste your gold on gambling, as it's not worth doing until you hit maps. And even then, I wouldn't do it. Clearfell only has one objective, Barrier of the Rotten Pack. You can rush right at her, and once you defeat her, you can move on, but I usually head north to find the mysterious campsite, as this is where you'll obtain an uncut gem. The waypoint is usually south, but don't take it as gospel, as the maps can be completely inverted with the procedural generation. But what doesn't change is the entrance to the mud barrel. It's always right beside the waypoint. But I would suggest ignoring that for now. I found that Barrier is usually north of the waypoint. Once you found it, you can tell when you're getting close because you'll start to see patches of ice on the ground. The safest place to be when fighting Barrier is right beside her. Her mechanics are very similar to the Miller with a few extras added. She uses Ice Nova, which is a ring type attack. The safe zones are right beside her, or just to run away. She also does Pillars of Ice, which have floor indications, and a frontal cleave that requires you to get behind her. Finally, she summons additional dogs to help her throughout the fight. If your AoE isn't great, you can kite the ads outside of the arena and then come back and deal with her solo. Just keep in mind that her frontal cleave attack will go through terrain, so you will get hit outside of the arena if you're close enough. After defeating Bira, the exit to the Grelwood is generally to the east. If you manage to find Bira before the waypoint, I suggest you find the waypoint before heading to the Grelwood.
I think I prefer it this way.
When I arrive in the Grelwood, I usually seek out the Witch's Hut. This can be skipped as the rewards are a flask and an uncut gem, but as a new player, you'll find both of these helpful. However, your main objective is to find the waypoint or the entrance to the Red Vale. Whichever comes first is fine. The Brambleghast is also located here. I don't quite remember the rewards, but if you find him, kill him. Otherwise, save him for after you complete Act 1. I'll go through his mechanics all the same.
What a beautiful monstrosity.
The Brambleghast is a bit more involved than Bira and the Miller, but his main purpose is to introduce the purple exploding orb mechanic. This is a fairly common on-death effect that monsters will have in the endgame, so getting used to them now is a good thing. They are countered by running directly through them. Once you touch them, they'll give you a few seconds to move before exploding. These things will kill you if you lose track of them in the endgame. Brambleghast also summons two massive vines that slam the ground. which require you to dodge. He throws a purple orb that shoots projectiles, which are also easy to dodge. All in all, the boss is fairly easy. Just remember the purple orbs and get used to seeing them as a repeated mechanic going forward.
It's a pity to end you, monstrous weed. Blood, bones, and rust. Death in abundance.
The Red Vale is required to progress further in the axe, as it blocks access to the Grim Tangle zone. The map involves looking for 3 obelisks, which I found are often arranged in a giant triangle on the maps. I usually start by running along the wall, north or south, it doesn't matter. Once I finally find one obelisk, I immediately start moving diagonally until I find the next. Finally, I try to complete the triangle in search of the third. The Rust King is a fairly simple boss. He only has one mechanic worth mentioning. He will say for the clan and shoot several swords in a circle. Each sword will spawn additional enemies where it lands. You can evade this by getting close to him and circle strafing around him. Other than that, he has no other mechanics worth mentioning.
Very loud and very dull.
Once you have all 3 quest items, teleport back to town and speak to Renly. Then head back to the Grelwood. If you did not find the waypoint before heading into the Red Vale, teleport back to the Red Vale and backtrack through the Grelwood, as this will be your fastest route. You'll need to find the Grelwood waypoint at this time to progress the story. Keep an eye out for orange growths, as these will indicate you're approaching the Grim Tangle. If you find the entrance to that area, head inside and collect the waypoint before continuing on. Once you find the waypoint, nail in the 3 spikes, then speak to Una, then you can teleport back to town. Exhaust all of her dialogue options while you're in town, then use the waypoint to travel to the Grim Tangle. Once you're there, speak to Una once more, and she will clear the path, allowing you to progress the story further.
The old magics still thrive. The way's open.
You're looking for the entrance to the Cemetary of The Eternals in the Grim Tangle. Usually, I just run straight ahead from where I enter, always trying to find my way back to the center despite where the maze is trying to take me. The Rotten Druid is also here. You can go out of your way to find him now or come back at the end of Act 1 to do it. I think he awards a Spirit Gem. As always, I'll explain his mechanics before moving on to the next zone.
This druid has seen better days.
First things first. Anything yellow in this area will hurt you. This boss introduces territory denial mechanics with the use of poison ground. Throughout the battle, he will relocate around the ring using teleportation. He'll also grow a small circle around himself, and if you're caught in it, it'll push you into the center of the arena to explode the yellow blisters, dealing poison damage. He'll then use a large screen wide circle attack, which will require you to move as giant vines show up and begin to slam the ground. He channels energy in front of him and throws a boulder here and there. All you gotta do is dodge them. Other than that, this boss is fairly simple.
At least he died in a place he loved, or some such nonsense.
Quickly! My family has been abducted!
You don't have to talk to Lachlann at all in the cemetery. I usually just choose a direction and start moving. You're looking for either the Mausoleum of the Praetor or the Tomb of the Consort. If you come across their graves, make sure you click the grave as it will give you a piece of jewelry. Once you find the tomb or the mausoleum, I usually just enter, complete it, and then I take the waypoint back to the cemetery and go the opposite direction to find the remaining zone.
Dreadful Draven. Where are you hiding?
The Mausoleum's Forgotten Riches is an underground chamber, which usually requires you to click a switch on a pillar to access it. I found my first unique in this place, so I'm obligated to always check it. It's usually found at a dead end, so I usually use the checkpoint to teleport back to the entrance, then I go the opposite direction to find Draven. If you find Draven first, you can leave as soon as you defeat him.
Depraved witch! You are not long for this world!
Draven is a bit more difficult than the previous bosses as he has a few layered mechanics and he's faster than the other bosses we fought so far. His overhead slam creates 2 waves of energy that span the length of the distance between him and the wall he's aimed it towards. Stand behind him to avoid it. He will occasionally be assisted by Asinia, who is the boss from the opposite dungeon. When little ghosts show up, you should step on them, otherwise they will empower him. His advancing slashes can kill you if you get caught and you don't get out the way. He has no other mechanics of note, however, since you'll also be dealing with Asinia periodically, the battle can become a bit chaotic, so stay on your toes.
Give it a rest. Your empire is no more.
For the event in the Tomb of the Consort, you'll find a lone spirit in front of a chest. Sometimes it's right before the boss room, sometimes it's on the opposite side of the map. This one awards an uncut gem. prepare to be blocked in by a bunch of rare and magic mobs. If you use projectile-based attacks, be aware that the skeletons with the great shields reflect range attacks back at you, so you'll need to get behind them or stun them to lower their shield.
Oh, show me your power, dear sister.
Asinia is easier than Draven in my opinion. She does an AoE that gets larger as it chases you with ever-increasing circles. When she shouts no escape, she'll try to imprison you in a ring of bones. You can break a segment to get out, but if you stay in long enough, she'll drop a targeted attack on the ring that will probably kill you. Like with Draven, he'll start to invade with his attacks, including the same spirits that empower if you allow her to consume them, so you gotta step on those. He'll also try to use his wave attack every now and then. The battle is fast-paced like Draven, but ultimately it's much easier.
At last, it's open!
Once you've defeated Draven and Asinia, teleport back to town and use the waypoint to return to the Cemetary of the Eternals. This will place you right in front of Lachlann. Open the gates and proceed to the boss arena. Lachlann is the first challenging boss you'll encounter in Path of Exile 2. And quite honestly, might be the reason why folks quit in frustration. Winning this battle is heavily contingent on your ability to dodge and severely punishing when you fail to do so. His most damaging attacks will come after he shouts, "My rage burns." He'll slam the ground twice, first in front and then behind. There are two ways to deal with this. Either dodge behind him and then back to the front, or dodge to the side and wait for the attacks to finish as they produce an AoE on the ground on impact. He also sends 2 green spirits after you. These are better dealt with up close, as while they're chasing you, they leave a frozen trail on the ground. When the spirits finally reach you, they will go straight up into the air and land where they hit you. So dodge out of the way. The frozen trail can last a long time, and you can find yourself in a situation where there's a lot of frozen ground slowing you down, making it harder to dodge his slams. If you keep your distance from him, he'll start to use an attack that sends a frontal cone of earth in your direction. He will also send spirits that spin in a circle, leaving a larger radius of frozen ground. All in all, the boss isn't mechanically heavy. However, the combination of frozen trails and frozen ground slowing you down, and the fact that he will one-shot you if you get caught by most of his attacks, makes this boss quite frustrating for folks, understandably so.
Your dreary little tale is over, old man.
With Lachlann defeated, I suggest heading into the hunting grounds to unlock the waypoint, then teleporting back to town to complete the quest. Doing this will give you access to the Hooded One, who unlocks your ability to identify items in your inventory for free. Once you're ready to proceed, head back to the hunting grounds. Of course, you don't have to do this at all, and you can just proceed to the hunting grounds to continue powering through Act 1. Let me start by saying, everything in the hunting grounds is optional. So just run straight from whatever direction you came from when you entered from the Cemetery of the Eternals, and look for the Ogham Farmland's exit, which is the next objective. I'm going to still go through all the optional content for the sake of the guide. The zone has a single ritual. Do it when you find it to acquire an uncut gem. Then run north or south until you find the Crowbell or the 3 treants in a circle performing a ritual. All of the events are pretty straightforward. The Crowbell is much easier than Lachlann, but I'll still explain his mechanics all the same. You can usually tell you're close to the Crowbell when you can see red thorns showing up all over the map. Also look for a small pit, which indicates the second half of the arena. Once I see the pit, I usually run around looking for the checkpoint.
Squawk all you like. Soon you'll be dead.
The fight's fairly simple, and so are the rules. Don't be in front of them. All of their attacks are frontal cleaves of some sort, and the arena shrinks smaller and smaller each time he moves to a new section.
Don't run. We're just playing.
And the rules don't change, just stay behind him. That's it. That's the fight.
Oh, we were just getting started.
The only important thing in Ogham Farmland is Una's loot. I found this thing as soon as I've zoned in. I found it north, I found it south. I don't know the method to which it actually spawns. I just know that once you start seeing houses, look for the one you can enter and you'll find the loot in a box. The loot gives you 2 passive skill points, so it's worth getting before moving on, but it's also 100% optional. The crop circle is another event found in this zone. It's just a collection of elites that drop a skill gem, 100% skippable. I found the best way to progress through Ogham Village is to move diagonally. What I mean by that is if you come in from the east, move northwest or southwest and keep going until you find a checkpoint, vice versa if you come in from the west. The first checkpoint will be for Renly's workshop. Clear it out as it will give you access to the salvage bench. After that, keep pushing in that direction that you were going in until you find the executioner.
They've all gone mad!
You should have been burned at the stake, witch.
my would-be executioner.
The executioner fight is not too complicated. He does huge slow swings that are telegraphed and easily dodged, and a charged up overhead slam that has a massive AoE on impact. The only skill that might catch you off guard is his AoE from the sky. It's hard to see due to the subtle indicators of its targeting location. Just move in a direction after you hear him say guillotine drops.
The guillotine drops.
The fire circles are not coming from him, but the archers he has summoned as adds. Some of them are outside of the arena, so you can't defeat them to stop them, so they just dodge them while focusing on the boss.
And so, who is the true master of death?
When you enter the Manor Ramparts, head west until you can head north, and keep trying to go as far north as you can until it forces you to go back east. You're looking for the entrance to the manor. If you find the gallows along the way, click the corpse hanging for a support gem, otherwise you can skip this and come back for it later. When entering Ogham Manor, head east until you find the pit that will allow you to hear Geonor giving orders to his men.
The time is nigh. Our triumph is at hand!
This is where you'll start looking for the optional boss Candlemas, located on the first floor. While Candlemas is optional, I would suggest killing him now as he gives you a permanent boost to maximum life. When you find this section that looks like a church, Candlemas is nearby. Find the statue and read the lore tablet to begin the fight.
What a delightfully sacrilegious creature.
Candlemas isn't too complicated of a fight. He does frontal cleaves and linear slashes, and he also charges up and blows fire that tracks you, but if you circle behind him, he moves too slow to keep up. He also does a rocket salvo that's a bit hard to dodge, but shouldn't really do too much damage to you. Once you defeat him, head back the way you came and find the stairs to the next floor. From here on out, you can avoid all the side rooms and keep progressing until you see the pit. Each time you come across this pit, you know that you're coming close to the boss arena.
No noose this time. I'll remove your head myself!
Not if I take yours first.
Geonor is a culmination of all the mechanics you have learned so far. He has an aggressive swing pattern similar to Draven, and he leaves the arena to crash down on you similar to the guillotine drop from the executioner. You will need to begin dodging the moment he starts to howl, otherwise you'll be caught most of the time. When Geonor charges you with his sword, it will impale you and push you until it hits the wall, so make sure you dodge. He will also follow up most of his attacks with a cleave right behind him that will require you to dodge again. Once you get him below half, he'll transform. However, if you have very high DPS, you may be able to move his bar to 0, but don't expect him to die until he transforms into phase 2. While in his werewolf form, he'll add a few new attacks, the main one being when he covers the arena in frost, trapping you in the center to kill his adds. He'll begin reciting these as my poem, and after each line he'll strike. You'll need to try and dodge. He may hit you a few times, but I don't think this skill has ever killed you.
I will take out your heart and savor each bite.
When he says he'll take out your heart or I smell your blood, find someplace safe to stand. While you attack, he will erect pillars of ice that will freeze you if you get hit by them.
Solstice of pain.
Solstice of Pain requires you to constantly move as it is a series of attacks with an AoE a bit larger than the light circles that it shows, and it does a lot of damage. And while his life gets low, Solstice of Pain will turn red, and he will cast it and keep doing his other attacks while fighting you. Don't ignore the pillars as they continue to do incredible amounts of damage on top of you needing to dodge his other skills.
Allow me to clear your mind, if only for a moment.
And that's it. It took me roughly an hour to make it through Act 1 on Cruel, and I've been getting faster and faster on my alt characters. If that's all you came here for, drop a like if you found the video helpful. Subscribe to the channel as I will be covering Acts 2 through 6 when they become available, and I will also be making guides to early mapping and guides to skill gems and support synergies that you might be overlooking to help your build get to the next level, so make sure you tune in. For everybody else, there are 2 bosses that I skipped, so I will be going back and covering them before I end the video. First up, Mudburrow. Teleport back to town and then use the waypoint to head to Clearfell. From there, head to the Mudburrow. Once inside, just head straight until you find the checkpoint and the boss. It is a maze, but it's not that big. And there's also a mini event here with the hatchery, but the rewards are random, so do it or don't, it's up to you.
What a pretty worm.
This boss has a few minor mechanics to look out for. First, when he moves, he will create collision with his body. You'll have to keep track of his tail because eventually it will attack you as well. But when that starts, your character usually calls it out. He will also go underground, and when he's about to come up, you'll see a red circle on the ground. Just don't be there when he gets up. Finally, when he does come up, he will slam his face into the ground and then spit venom on the ground that will do damage if you stay standing on top of it. Just move behind him and you should be fine. Otherwise, this fight is very, very easy and shouldn't give you any trouble at all, especially if you already killed Geonor. Finally, we're going to head to Freythorn. If you don't have the waypoint, you will have to go to the hunting grounds and find it, sorry. In order to get access to this boss, you have to do all 4 rituals. 3 of them are on the way to the boss, while the last one will be locked until you do the previous 3. Don't get lost exploring this map. It is huge, it's a giant maze, and you will backtrack a lot. Keep in mind the rituals here are fairly close together, so once you find one, assume the other 2 are pretty close by. The king will appear during the final ritual altar, so be prepared. He has 2 mechanics to pay attention to. First, he will put on a red debuff and tell you to stop moving, or a purple debuff and tell you to not stand still, or something to that effect. Listen to these prompts or you will be stunned. He'll also summon totems, which quite frankly, I destroy with AoE, so I don't even know what they do. And when he says grow, he'll do a Nova attack that emanates from near his feet, which require you to move away from him. And Thorn Grip is a frontal cone AoE that you need to dodge. Throughout the battle, he'll leave red spots on the ground that you should not stand in. And like Geonor, once his life gets below a certain threshold, he will transform and reset to start phase 2. In this new form, he will pretty much do all the same attacks, just much faster, along with a slow moving orb of energy that leaves behind boils on the ground that will explode if you get too close. The King of the Mist is an uber boss, so consider this fight to be training for the eventual endgame battle, which has a few more phases that are not shown here. Remember, this is also an actual ritual, so once they are completed, make sure you click the altar to collect the rewards from the altar. And that's going to be it, guys. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. Join me on the next one where I will be going through Act 2. Like I said earlier, have yourselves a good morning. And if this is the only video you watch me today, good afternoon or good night.